He is, without question, one of the best in the business, and nobody is better at calling 3 home run games better than Greg Brown.
He's the only guy calling 3 home run. Thank you, Steve.
I had to say that because, I mean, it's true. No, I mean, really. I mean, you've been getting a bundle of them, more practice than anybody. Greg, how exciting is it for you in this job? In what I do in Penn State football and basketball, everybody's always interested when the freshmen get in there. For you, it's the prospects. What's it been like seeing the initial steps that they are taking out there?
Well, I think it's a great analogy, Steve, that I guess maybe you'd say unfortunately for the Pirates, they've been kind of like that to a degree, like a college team where they bring in guys that they recruit, and then you watch them grow, and then eventually they leave. Now, at some point, and I believe it's going to happen soon. And then to a degree, it has happened with guys like Brian Hayes, and to a smaller degree, Brian Reynolds, where they keep guys around. Of course, we go back to Andrew McCutcheon, signed that long-term contract. They've done it with other guys, Polanco, Marte, and so on. But until they do lock up guys, and until they're winning consistently year after year after year, you do have to kind of look at the individual prospects like freshmen and real good freshman players that will make this. In your case, you see guys that are going to help the Nittany Lions win in football, basketball, or whatnot. And in my case, I see guys that I think the Pirates can build around. Obviously, O'Neil Cruz stands out. He's absolutely a complete freak of nature. I've never seen anything like it in less than 2 weeks since he's been up. But then you got guys like Jack Sawinski, who seemingly comes out of nowhere, traded over from the San Diego Padres in the Adam Frazier deal, and was not the highlighter, at least as I can recall, of that trade. It was Tucupita Marcano, who was the great athlete and the younger player. But Sawinski, in an emergency basis, because Brian Reynolds gets COVID in third week of April, they need a guy that's closer geographically to Pittsburgh, and so they say, hey, we can't get a guy from Indy. Let's get the guy from Altoona because they're playing in Akron, and he can get here now. Let's grab that outfielder Sawinski from Double-A Altoona, and he'll hold the fort for 2 or 3 days till Reynolds gets back. Well, all he's done is stay in the lineup almost every single day since. It's been fascinating to watch how quickly he's grown in the big leagues.
There's another element, too. Around here, it's always I'd rather play a guy a game too late than a game too early, because you're talking about the confidence part of it. Do you have a feel yet? It seems like Ben Cherington, at least, based on what he did with the Red Sox in Toronto, had a pretty good feel about when to bring somebody up. Is that the sense you're getting from Ben about that feel?
I do, yeah. I do think he has that feel, and now there are arguments on all sides about the O'Neil Cruz situation, who tore it up in spring training. There's an argument that said, hey, throw him at shortstop and let him go and see what happens. Let him get his feet wet now. He's a freak of nature. Who knows what he could do? They decide to keep him down for whatever reason. Maybe the financial thing comes into play, but lo and behold, and maybe it's because perhaps Cruz's disappointment shines through, he does not have a great first month. When he finally does get it all together and all the boxes they say that he needed to check off, that's when they bring him up, and he hit the ground running, and it's been a phenomenal 2-week stretch. But what I also like about what they've done, Steve, unlike, and this is no criticism of the past, but it's just factual, I like the fact they are willing to bring guys up for a test run.
Yeah.
And if they fail, they go back down. I had that discussion, and again, it's all philosophy. Mm-hmm. But I had the debate with Neil Huntington, who's still a friend of mine, a former GM of the Pirates, who just was really afraid of bringing up a guy who wasn't ready for the big leagues. He did not want some guy to come up and fail and then feel like that could ruin his career. Now Huntington was not around when we did that with Chad Hermanson, but many people thought there was a prospect probably close to 20 years ago named Chad Hermanson, mm-hmm. who one of our longtime minor league coaches who did not heap praises on many people said he could walk on water when he was in the minor leagues. He'd never seen a prospect like him. Well, he came up and he failed miserably, and then went back down and never got it together again. And who knows whether that ruined his major league career or prospects. But to your point, Cherington seems to be willing way more than in past regimes to bring a guy up. And if it doesn't work out, if they see the game speeding up on him, Travis Swaggerty comes up for a week. And you know what? The game sped up on him fast.
Yes.
Back down he goes.
Right.
Cal Mitchell, same thing. Couple weeks, back down. So I like that he has the idea that, hey, they could come up, they could succeed. And even if they fail, the time they spend in the big leagues, not September, but in May or June or July, way different animal than in the past. September call-ups shouldn't even count. But when they're really in the fray and they're facing the best pitchers in baseball, and they got to make those adjustments, that's going to be a big win for them in the long run.
Great points. Now, I know O'Neil Cruz really wants to play shortstop. It's only been a couple of weeks, plus you saw him in spring training too, Greg. What kind of shortstop do you think he can be on this level? Because I know a lot of people thought maybe he should be a right fielder.
Yeah, and so that's fascinating for me to watch, Steve, because I never really saw him play on an everyday basis. And, you know, the time he played in spring training, did he play? I don't even have the stats in front of me. He maybe played a handful of games in spring, maybe a week.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could play, and I had this discussion after the game with Kevin Young, who was doing the radio color last night. You know, O'Neil Cruz did not have a ground ball hit to him last night.
Yeah.
The entire game. So you could go a week and see it 2 or 3 plays. You really have to see a guy play every single day. And what I'm seeing now is what I was not aware of, that he can go ahead and bobble a ball 2 or 3 times. He doesn't have to be the cleanest fielder in the world, because that arm will make up for a bobble or two. And that's what I was unaware of. And for those reasons, I think he could be an everyday shortstop. There's nothing he's shown me in 2 weeks anyway that says, wow, there's no chance. Instead, I see a guy that is a legitimate major league shortstop.
It's interesting because Alec Boehm, who was the 3rd overall pick and was taken by the Phillies out of Wichita State, when I saw him in the minors for a handful of games, I found him to be a tall kid, but stiff. O'Neil Cruz is 6'7". What kind of flexibility does he have, Greg?
And that's a great point, Steve, because you know, when he came up, people kind of compared him size-wise to a Gregory Polanco.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would call Polanco stiff. I hear what you're saying about Alec Boehm, and that probably, I would say, watching Boehm, that might describe him even now.
Yeah.
He's just not fluid. He's not. But
Good point.
For me, O'Neil Cruz is way more athletic than Gregory Polanco. Polanco looked, and some people laughed about him, a young player. He hadn't grown into his body yet, but looked like a baby giraffe, kind of tripping, literally tripping over his own feet. He did that once in Chicago as a rookie, cost us a ball game. He dropped an easy pop-up because he tripped under his own feet on a routine pop-up. And I don't know that he ever really got to understand his body. The Polanco situation was always odd, whereas Cruz, when he plays, he doesn't look 6'7", or doesn't look awkward, I should say, at 6'7" at shortstop. He just looks like a real athlete, and everything he does, running, throwing, hitting, hits for power. He looks like, you know, I guess now you could compare him to, it's still awfully early and not fair, but in terms of a big, tall, lean, strong athlete on the field like Darryl Strawberry was.
Yeah. This has been a case where when the Pirates win, it's a one-run game. When the Pirates lose, it's usually a one-run game. What does that tell you, Greg, about how close they are because of all the one-run games, one way or the other?
Well, I wish I could, and I talked. It's funny you say this, Steve. I talked to between innings to Bob Walk about this, and I get it that we have to, and it's for me, it makes it fun to watch. It means they're in every game.
Yes.
That's what I take from that. But there is no way that what happens to the 2022 Pirates playing a bunch of close games has any relevance to 2023.
Right.
They will not win more games next year because they're playing so many close games this year. It doesn't happen. It's never happened in baseball in the past. And all it means is simply they're fun to watch. They're competitive. It's too bad. I do believe that if they had lockdown relievers for the 7th, 8th, and 9th that a lot of teams do have these days, the Pirates used to have them, they would have won way more games this year. I think they'd be a 500 team.
Yeah.
But it still says nothing about what will happen next year. All it tells me is they're fun, a lot of fun to watch.
And final question for you, Greg, because I know you got to get to work today. Because and that is, in general, how have you felt? You mentioned the pitching, 7th, 8th, 9th inning. In general, how have you felt about the pitching staff?
It's at times good. April, we talked a lot about this, and I understand it. The Pirates are trying to implement the Tampa Bay Rays blueprint. They brought in a coach from Tampa, and he's now the roving guy named Dewey Robinson, and it worked in Tampa, and it's still working to a degree. That you use this bullpenning thing where you match up relievers with you go over a game plan before a game, and you match up these relievers with who you think they'll face later. And it to a degree it worked in April, Steve, but I think that was a bunch of factors. Hitters weren't hitting yet. It wasn't warm. They didn't know some of the Pirate relievers. And I think what you're seeing now is when you have starting pitching that only gives you 5 innings, that only goes through twice through a lineup, it's going to wear down the bullpen.
Yeah.
And I see that from Stratton. I'm knocking on wood and hoping that Bednar is okay, because that was alarming last night to watch Bednar not get the outs. To have Bednar pulled from the game in the 9th inning with 2 outs and bring in a 23 or 4-year-old rookie, Yeri De Los Santos, that was telling. And I think it speaks to, I think, there's no way to prove it, but for my opinion is that maybe it has a lot to do with the bullpen being overused. So they need the starters to go deeper. And that's what I'm looking for the rest of this year and beyond. And so the starting pitching is okay. We'll see Roansy Contreras tonight. I'd love to see him go 6. I want our starters to go 6 innings, not 5, 6. And if it means you got to go through a lineup a third time, so be it.
I am absolutely with you on that. Greg, great respect for your work. You do a tremendous job. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Steve, I feel the same way about you. It's great talking to you.